Ticket Machine is the official ticket broker of Spartan Nation. No matter what you need a ticket for, border to border, coast to coast, the Ticket Machine is your ticket source. So whether you need to get into the hottest concerts, the best sporting events, you want the best seats in the house, or you just want to get in the door, when you want to go to any event that requires a ticket, anywhere, border to border, coast to coast, it's always theticketmachine.com. Theticketmachine.com, 517-655-3201. Check it out today at theticketmachine.com.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back. You are listening to Spartan Nation. I am your host, Hondo Carpenter. We bring in each and every week legendary prep high school football and basketball coach in the state of Michigan, the great coach Chuck Grenier, for our good, bad, and ugly segment. Obviously, there's Spartan basketball, which we'll get coach on at another time once football season ends to talk about basketball a lot. We're going to stay on football today, and we're going to talk about Michigan State. And folks, I have always endeavored since I started Spartan Nation in 2000 to be honest, to tell what I believe are the best fans, the most loyal fans in the world, the truth. At times it has made Spartan fans love me. At times it has made Spartan fans absolutely hate me. But I'm not a person who lives by what people think of me. I don't mean that to be rude. I just don't care. Because I'm going to be true to who I am. I'm going to be true to who I believe I am to be. And I'm going to tell you this. Outside of the defense and Matt Coughlin, there is nothing to be happy about. And I'm going to tell you a stat here that's going to blow your mind. In 2014, the Michigan State offense was ranked 11th in the country. In 2015, it was ranked 73rd. In 2016, it was ranked 75th. In 2017, it was 91st. And in 2018, this year, it's 111th. The reason I went back is for a couple of reasons. First of all, is I wanted to give you proof of performance, because prior performance is a prime indicator of future performance. Number two, I wanted to make sure it just wasn't injuries this year. And number three, it gives you over a broad spectrum of recruiting classes. This offense is completely broken. This offense needs to be blown up and repaired. This offense is unacceptable. This offense for a team. Now remember, this wasn't fans and media who said coming into the year this was a Big Ten championship caliber team and a return to the playoff. This was what the coaches and players said. D'Antonio said, we got to score more points, We're 111th. 20 spots below is where they are. Now, injuries, fine. But you've had all these recruiting classes. There should be depth. And you didn't lose because of injuries to Northwestern. You didn't lose because of injuries to Arizona State. You lost because your team played like crap. Then you should have beaten Ohio State. I predicted in writing, if you start Rocky Lombardi, you win. Why? Because when you start Rocky Lombardi, your defense comes out fresh. Brian Lewerke had 5 possessions in Ohio State territory, and the kid is injured. I'm not picking on Brian Lewerke. He couldn't score any points. Then you come back, and Rocky Lombardi leads your only 2 scoring drives, has 5 possessions that begin inside his own 5, and you bench him. And oh, by the way, Brian Lewerke, although he didn't lose them all, had 3 fumbles. And I'm not picking on Brian Lewerke. This, my friends, has nothing to do with Brian. You don't play Rocky Lombardi at Maryland when you don't need Lewerke. I said a couple weeks ago, you come out if you're Mark D'Antonio and Brian Lewerke is your guy and say, I am shutting him down until he's 100% healthy. Hey, he's coming back next year. So you know what? We're not going to win the Big Ten. We're not going to the playoff. We're going to ride Rocky Lombardi. But Brian, you're our guy. And you play Rocky Lombardi. Not put your right foot in and put your right foot out. This is not the hokey pokey. This is big time college football. And you blow the situation by getting Rocky no reps of meaning in Maryland. You don't play him against Michigan, which, oh, by the way, I predicted a win if you start him, just like I did against Ohio State. So Rocky comes in. The defense is exhausted. Go watch the tape. He's buried inside his own. Now, a lot of that has to do with the punter, but also has to do with the defense that's exhausted. They had to carry the load the entire first half. Unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. Then you go into the press conference, and oh, by the way, Dave Warner, who I've been getting criticized for protecting, he didn't hide the fact it was Coach D'Antonio. You got Brian Lewerke. Go watch Brian Lewerke's postgame video at SpartanNation.com. Couldn't make the throws. Couldn't make them. Then you got Rocky Lombardi. Rocky, I asked him, what'd you think about getting benched? Drops his head, thinks about it, no comment. I don't want anyone guessing. Mark D'Antonio is my personal friend. I love him personally. I care about him personally. He is a great father. He is a tremendous husband. And he is a good friend. I don't want the man gone. I'm not calling for that. But here is what I'm saying. This isn't about personal. It's about football. And you can be blindly loyal to people, but when they're not blindly loyal to you, you've got issues. There were thousands of empty seats at that stadium. When are we loyal to the fans? Everyone wants to talk about fans not showing up. Fine, you want to talk about it? But they bought the tickets. They were sold. They didn't show up because they don't have any confidence in the 111th ranked offense. Coach Grenier, take it away because I'm about to blow up.
I guess. I can't find any fault in anything that you've said so far. I think what you did leave out is we've talked for years about getting your second quarterback significant player reps during a game, and that just didn't happen. I agree totally with what you say. I believe we lost the Ohio State game in Maryland, and when Rocky didn't play in that game, he didn't get his game reps. He didn't get the better feel for the offense so that the offense could be opened up maybe a little bit more for him. I think we lost it in that game because he really needed to get more player reps. You see that there are some plays that are open. There's some big shots down the field that are open. For instance, Lane. But Rocky just hasn't had enough player reps, game reps in the game to understand, to put a little bit more air under the ball than he's doing right now. And that goes to coaching, too. I don't think he's getting really good coaching, or either one of them, really, at the quarterback level. I've been a big fan of Brad Salem for a long time, but he keeps seeing the same thing over and over again. And then they go into the game, and then they do a few things to help them out, and then they don't go back to them. Specifically, what I'm talking about is because the offensive line is struggling to some degree there as far as pass protection, roll them out, move the pocket, do some things like that. But they do become awfully predictable. And it's the old adage, if you keep banging your head against the wall and it's not helping you any, quit banging your head against the wall, because we just cannot run between the tackles, period. And we ran a little bit better against Maryland, but Maryland's not the equivalent team of a Michigan.
But when you say you ran it, when you say you ran against the Maryland, it's like saying, okay, I could get a date at a whorehouse with a fistful of hundreds. Right. I mean, no offense to Maryland. I know, but no offense to Maryland. Everyone can run against Maryland. Maryland would schedule Maryland for their own homecoming if they could, based on where the program is today. I mean, you're talking about beating. This is the thing I don't get. Well, we're bowl eligible. Okay, that's great. And you know what? That is a testimony to how great of a coach Mark D'Antonio is. It's a testimony because he has brought this program in 12 years from when all they did was hope for a bowl to now the expectations are. But here's the problem. They have gone to donors and ticket holders and asked for money to keep the place in tip-top shape, and they've stepped up. The donors have stepped up. Michigan State has all the facilities that they need. When they needed money for staff, they got them money for staff. This is the thing. I'm not questioning D'Antonio as a coach. This man should have a statue built for what he's done. But that doesn't erase where the program now is today.
But that falls back to coach, though.
Yep,
That
I
falls
agree.
back to coach. And the problem is that he, and we've said this for years and years too, that, and you've even brought this up about Saban and turning over 25% of his staff every once in a while to keep things jumping and keeping on their toes. But when you have coaches on the team that just don't seem to be getting what you need out of your players, it's not and I'm going to talk about this loyalty too. The loyalty goes to the players. If you don't have the coaching staff to develop the players that you're recruiting, that is not being faithful to your players. And I can see out there in the field, your defensive coaches, they seem to be all on board. They're doing a great job with those people. The defense, and we talked about this last week again, is a championship defense. So if you have a championship defense, with the offense that you have at this point right now, you're looking at winning games 7-0 maybe, or 3-0, because the offense just isn't producing. If the coaches cannot get those players to produce, then something needs to change. And
Coach, let me ask you.
Go ahead.
Let's talk real hard truth. 2014, the 11th ranked offense. 2015, 73rd. 16, 75th. 17th, 91st. 18th, 111th. Okay? Those are hard, raw datas from the NCAA. What am I missing here on the offense? Because I'm going to tell you, the only thing consistent in the MSU offense besides inconsistency is the staff. The only thing consistent. The players have changed. The staff hasn't. So when you look at these numbers, I'm sorry, you've got to ask yourself, in the last 4 seasons, what's changed? Now, in 14, they were really good, but they don't have those players anymore. So the only thing that changed from 14 to 18 is players. Please help me.
Yeah. Well, the thing that came to mind just now as you were talking about that is I watched the Notre Dame and Michigan game at the beginning of the season. And Michigan was struggling offensively in that game, and all the commentators and all the analysts and that talked about finding what's their identity, what are they run, what are they doing, what is this, and that sort of thing. And eventually, now Michigan offense has come along, and they're powerhousing now along with their defense. Now, what was the difference? Well, from my point of view, in watching those games there, what they did was they started to work and find things that they were good at. And I said this a couple of weeks ago. I don't think there's that much difference between the Michigan State offensive lineman and the Michigan offensive lineman. They're not that good, really, the Michigan offensive lineman, I don't think anyway. But they've constructed their offense to what they have. And in Michigan State's offense, I don't see that happening. I see we do the same thing game after game, and it's not working. If it's the players, the game plan, or the coaching, or whatever it is, it's just not working, and we don't seem to change. It's that stubbornness that's in there. We roll out against Ohio State, and it kind of works. We do this against Ohio State, and it kind of works, and then we jump right back into it. And I think you're exactly right. The only thing that's changed on the Michigan State side is the players over the course of the years, they graduate, and the coaching staff remains the same. So where do you look to get better offensively? Well, you got to look at the people that are there all year long and all career long for Michigan State. It was Mark D'Antonio, and he won't look at that, I guess, and change people because of his loyalty to a fault. You see that in the quarterbacking last game.
But let's be honest about something here, because I want to make this point clear, because I know it'll get lost. No one here is saying D'Antonio's got to go. Nobody's saying we don't support Mark. No one says we don't appreciate how far he's brought the program. But you know what? You can take a turd and put a bow tie on it, but it's still a turd. This offense is a turd. I mean, there's nothing else. You just have to be honest. It's only being fair. It's calling them not just as we see it. This isn't opinion, Coach. These are facts. 14th In 14, you were 11th in the country. 15, 73rd. 16, 75th. 17, 91st. 18, you were 111th. I mean, even the year you were horrible at 3-9, you were 75th. You went worse last year and won double-digit games, and you're 111th now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you supposedly had better recruiting class, better offensive linemen coming in, better wide receivers coming in. You've got better players, and you're recruiting, and you're going downhill. So where's the problem?
Well, and I'm going to say this. I think Terrence Samuel, when you look at all the injuries they've had there, I think Terrence Samuel has been the one offensive coach who's shined. You know what?
With the devastating injuries that they've had at that position, you've had your 3 top receivers injured or career-ending
and if you
during the course.
Right. And now, You know what? Everyone says, well, we had a couple of Allens in the NFL and Jack Conklin. Okay, that's true. Man, I got to bite my tongue because I got a lot I want to say about Jack Conklin, but I won't do it because I would say things publicly that aren't out there, and I'm just going to bite my tongue. But when Mark D'Antonio's career is over at Michigan State, it's not about Mark. I'm going to write about it. But until then, you know, Jack Conklin went out there and was a warrior. The Allens were warriors. But who's been developed? Who are guys that took monster steps not named Jack Conklin?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I'm serious. And let me just say something. If you want to complain about your offensive line, you recruited them. You want to complain about running backs? You recruited them. You want to complain about tight ends? You recruited them. You want to complain about quarterbacks? You recruited them. I mean, the only consistency in the Michigan State offense is the staff, Coach. And listen, I'm sorry. Usually this weekly good, bad, and ugly is all you. I got to tell you, I had massive donors talk to me this weekend. I talked to people in the program. The frustration level is through the roof. And here's where the frustration is. The frustration is not that they're 6-4 and they've lost to 4 teams that were just better than them. The frustration is this should not be. This is not a roster with no talent.
Right.
That's the frustrating part. It's like somebody starving who lives at an all-you-can-eat buffet. Do they have the talent of Alabama? No, I'm not saying they do. But this is a talented roster that even D'Antonio came out after the loss at Northwestern and said, we should be undefeated.
This has got to be a big wake-up call because, you know, I watch the interviews. I watch them on TV. I watch them on the Spartan Nation site on that. And it appears to me everybody in the world can see this except Coach. I mean, the questions that he gets are always directed towards starting quarterback because everybody understands Brian cannot do the job right now. If you go back tonight, and I'll tell you the part that this is the part that's really starting to concern me. If you go back tonight and you review the football game and watch the football game from a TV aspect, during the course of the game, late in the second half, Lewerke's coming off the field, and he's very loud. I can't tell you what he's saying, but I can tell you who it's directed at, and it looks like it's directed at Coach. So you got a football player that's going out there in the field that says that he can do the job, or he can play if you ask him. And you got a coach that knows that he isn't able to play. And the kid is getting frustrated. The kid is getting booed. He can't go out on the field. And this is the part that's really alarming. He can't go out on the field and perform at the level that needs to be performed. He's losing trust with his teammates. The fans are booing the situation. And it's going to get really poisonous, I think, at this time.
And you know what?
You got to get Rocky in there. You got to get Rocky in there. And you just, like you said at the beginning of this, you got to get Rocky in there. You got to come out with a statement. Brian Lewerke is my quarterback. He's hurt. We're not sending him in until he's 100%, and we're finishing with Rocky. You just got to do that because you're going to lose your team. You're going to lose your players. You lose confidence. And you just got to go with that. And that's the part that's becoming really alarming to me, is to see the attitude of the players on the field. And you don't want this to be a powder keg in the locker room. Just put it that way. And if it isn't already.
And I want to make sure this is really clear. Really, really clear. Nobody's going off the hook saying fire Mark D'Antonio. No one is saying Brian Lewerke's a bad kid, because I know him personally, love him. He's a wonderful kid from a great family and a very good quarterback. He's just not healthy. No one's saying Rocky Lombardi is the next Kirk Cousins. We don't know. We know what people inside the program have said about how he's oohed and awed the team. That's why we've been writing about him for 14 months in Spartan Nation. But nobody knows what he's going to be. Well, we are collectively criticizing the way the entire thing's been handled. Is that a fair summation of your thoughts?
Yeah, and some of the things that went wrong on the field for Rocky are partially his fault.
Sure.
But you know, if you don't, and the thing, because I have friends up here, we talk about the game, and I said to them, you know, I'll be really interested going into this ball game. How many practice reps Brian got, and how many practice reps that Rocky got, because you can see if they tried to give, if it was 60-40 for Lewerke over Lombardi, then you can see why some of the problems happened out there. And I'll give you two examples of that. The bad pitch on option. Well, the bad pitch on option, and it was high, and it was a bad pitch on option, but the running back's in the wrong position. So have you practiced that to begin with?
Well, let me ask you a question, Coach.
Then the second one.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, the second one was the bad snap run into by the wide receiver in the end zone. Well, you got a freshman running that, and you got a quarterback that hasn't got game reps, and you got a walk-on center. So those things have to be worked out over time, and you just can't be thrown into the melee right away. So, you know, some of this just goes back to prep. Some of this goes back to preparation and game plan. Some of this goes back to practice. But when it's disjointed like this, and that's the only way I could describe this offense out there, and they didn't look good from the beginning. I mean, they had all the breaks in the first quarter, and they capitalized on nothing at that point. And it's just disjointed. They didn't look together. The offense didn't look like on the same page. And then when that Ohio State punter flipped the game, it was turn out the lights at that point.
Okay, one last thing that I want to ask you. I had a Division I coach say to me, and I'm not making any excuses. Rocky Lombardi was his fault on the fumble. Okay, I'm not making any excuses for Rocky. But he said to me, go back and watch the film. Why are you calling a speed option after you've already ran the option, so you know they're going to crash on the quarterback because he ran that 47-yard run? Why are you running an option play where the running back does a jab step, which heads towards the quarterback, when you know they're going to come down on the quarterback? Why does he not turn and go at a straight 90-degree angle towards the sideline to get space? He said to me, Brian, it was Rocky's fault for the fumble, but that was a terribly called play. And anyone who understands the pace of the game, this is a Division I coach, he said, would not have called a jab step towards the quarterback. When you need 5 yards, he would have been sending him immediately, knowing that the defense is going to crash down. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Oh, I agree totally. I've said for years, I just scratch my head and how some of that stuff is run at the college level. And I've coached option teams before, and it just doesn't make sense. It looks like we just run this play without really coaching it up.
I agree.
So I agree totally.
Good, bad, and ugly. Let's talk. I mean, we're not going to get into it, but hats off to Matt Coughlin. Hats off to Cole Haan. Hats off to the defense. You guys have been heroic. You guys have been great. I'm sorry it's been lost on a turd of an offense. Long snapping issues, Coach. They've been there. But overall, I mean, this team's the bad can be summed up in the offense.
Right, exactly.
All right, he's a great coach, Chuck Grenier. The good, the bad, the ugly with Spartan football. It should be the good, the turd, or the good, the bad, and the turd. because that offense is bad. And listen, we're not talking about. Listen, this is nothing about players. This all's on coaching, every bit of it. Spartan Nation Radio, Spartan Nation Radio, Spartan Nation Radio.